Hello and welcome to NL's online guitar lesson series. Over the course of the next 6 weeks, we're going to learn lots of awesome stuff from the very beginning of the guitar. So you're going to learn how to hold the instrument, you're going to learn how to play the instrument, and you're going to learn, hopefully, how to think about the guitar moving forward. Before we get started playing the guitar, it's really important to get warmed up. We want to make sure that we have lots of blood moving through our shoulders, our arms, our hands, and our fingers especially. That will help to keep us nice and loose, it will help to make it easier to play, and it will help to prevent injury. So there's lots of movements we can do to make that happen, and here's a few of them now. We can start off just by shaking our arms. We can shake one arm at a time, or we can shake both arms. Feels a little bit silly just to do it on your own, but it doesn't really matter. Just to get your arms moving, to get blood moving through them. You can also roll your shoulders back and forward. A lot of people forget about the shoulders, but when we play guitar, our shoulders are moving into different positions, and you can get quite stiff if you're not nice and loosened off. The next thing to do would be to shake our wrists. Again, just to get the blood flowing through them, get used to moving through different ranges of motion in our wrists, and we can roll them around in circles as well, just to stretch off all the tendons and ligaments and muscles that control our hand. And we can also do the same thing with our fingers. We can wiggle our fingers to get them nice and warmed up, and we can stretch them in and out like this, just to make sure that we're nice and warm. We can even stretch our hands out like this, or if you feel like it, every individual finger as well, just to make sure that you're nice and loose. Even something as simple as rubbing your hands together can help to warm them up and get you ready to play. Just play around with all these movements, maybe make up some of your own, and try to build a little routine that works well for you. So most guitarists won't do a set routine before they play every time, but almost everybody will have a little bit of a shake off, will have a little bit of a loosen off, because it really does help. Now that we're nice and warmed up, let's get cracking on with the lesson. Hello and welcome to NL's online guitar lesson series. This is lesson 5, and today we're going to talk about rhythm and strumming. So when we talk about rhythm, the first thing that we have to talk about is pulse. In music, most music, and especially most Western music, there is a pulse, an underlying heartbeat that drives the rhythm of the whole song or ensemble or piece. You can really think of this as the heartbeat of the music. Usually, it's just a straight beat that keeps a certain time. And this is what every musician in the band or orchestra or ensemble is aligned to. This is how we all play together. Now, the pulse can be fast, or it can be slow. But there is almost always a pulse to latch onto. And it's very important that whatever we play is aligned to the pulse of the music. If you've ever seen musicians count before they start playing, like 1, 2, 3, 4, or if you've ever seen a conductor waving his hands in front of an orchestra, that person is dictating the pulse to the other musicians on stage. They're letting everyone know how quickly to play and how to play. So it's important for us to know how to play as well. A lot of the time when we're playing guitar, either on our own or with someone else, it can be really helpful to stamp our feet to create a pulse, or to make the pulse explicit, to make sure that we and other people can hear it. So if I'm strumming along to chords, I might go. And that just means that we all know where the pulse is. You can also do it for musical effect if you don't have a drummer. It can kind of create a drive. But all you're doing there is making the pulse explicit so that the audience can feel it too. If you're playing in a bigger band, a band that has a drummer or a percussion section, then maintaining the pulse, dictating the pulse, making sure that everyone knows where it is their job. That is one of a drummer's main functions. So they'll use their instruments, usually the kick drum, snare drum, hi-hat, sometimes a shaker, something similar to that, to make sure that everybody stays in time. And as long as you stay in time with the drummer, then you'll stay in time with everyone else. Now, for the most part in Western music, the pulse does not change speed. It doesn't slow or speed up. It just stays the same speed the whole time, like a ticking clock, just always the same speed. If you're having trouble keeping this up, if you have a habit of speeding up or slowing down, or if you just want to practice playing along to someone else's pulse rather than the one that you make up in your head, then you can use something called a metronome, which is a device that creates a steady beat. You can buy a metronome online. You can buy a module all of its own, a device. You can buy a physical metronome, like an old-fashioned one, that actually swings something side to side to create a tick-tock sound. Or you can just download an app for your phone. And that way, you can control the speed of the metronome, you can control the volume so that you can hear it, and you'll always have a metronome on hand whenever you need to play or practice. In most pop music, we count in groups of 4. And that means that when we play our pulse, to keep track of where we are, we count up to 4. When we get to 4, we go back to 1. So we go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is another reason why you might see musicians on stage shouting to each other, 1, 2, 3, 4, before they start a song. They're letting each other know where to come in on the count. Now that we understand the very basics of rhythm, we can start applying it to the guitar. Now, when we speak about rhythm, we're mostly concerned about our right hand, because that determines what gets played when. Right now, we're going to strum the strings. That means that we're going to play several strings at once. Sometimes we're going to play them all. And when we strum the strings, it's very important to get an even sound. We want to get them all roughly the same volume. If you have a plectrum, make sure that you're holding it tightly, but not too tightly. Make sure that you're not going to drop it, and make sure that you have enough of the plectrum sticking out that you can hit the strings easily. If you're not using a plectrum, you can use the pad of your thumb, or you can use the nails on your fingers. Either way, it's up to you. I'm going to use a plectrum. And for now, when we practice strumming, we don't have to worry about fretting anything with our left hand. So what I like to do is to just cover the strings and dampen them. And that means that it won't ring out. If I don't dampen them, it can all sound a bit washy. And right now, we want to know that we're in time. Okay, so if I start counting a pulse and stamping it with my foot, if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, then the next step is to start strumming along to that pulse. Really simple. I'm going to strum down the way, and I'm going to strum on every beat. So I'm going to go. Now there's a lot of subtlety with strumming, whether you do it beside the bridge, or closer to the neck. When you're actually fretting chords, that'll make a big difference to how the chords sound. But for right now, just try and play somewhere in the middle, right over the sound hole. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now if you can, try and count along, because that's always a really good thing to be able to do. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Once you're able to do that, the next step is to start actually fretting chords with your left hand at the same time. If you have a look at this chord chart, the same one we used in our last lesson, you'll see that the first chord here is a D major chord. So I'm going to make a D major chord shape, and I'm going to strum with my right hand. If you look at the chord diagram for D major, you'll see that I'm not actually playing these first 2 notes. I'm only going to play from this string down. So make sure that when you strum a D, you're only starting from the 4th string. That can take some practice. So have a little practice at it and then play along to the pulse. If I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Awesome. The next step after that is to change chords. So let's try that with a G chord this time. And the G chord, we strum every string. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Great. The next chord is an E minor, so let's try that one. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the last chord on this line is an A major. So let's try and play an A major. And remember that we're not playing this bottom string. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we're able to count and strum along to each of the chords in this progression. The next tricky part is to play the progression itself in time. You see the way this chord chart is written, and a lot of this information isn't included, it's just kind of assumed knowledge. But in most chord charts, if you see a chord taking up a whole space of its own, that means that we count it for 4 beats. So again, taking the first line of this chart as an example, it's 4 beats of D, 4 beats of G, 4 beats of E minor, and 4 beats of A major. If I just play that for you, it looks like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. G, 2, 3, 4. E minor, 2, 3, 4. A major, 2, 3, 4. So issues arise if you're not 100% comfortable switching between chords, and if you're not 100% comfortable counting and strumming in time. Usually what will happen is during the transition between chords, you'll kind of stumble. You'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, and you'll lose your place and you forget where to put your fingers because the pressure's on. All of a sudden, the train is running and you need to keep up. It just takes more practice. If you can do that, you've pretty much got chords down. At this level, that's all you'll ever need to do. Just switching between chords in time with the music. So once you've had a little bit of practice, try playing along with me to this whole progression. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. G, 2, 3, 4. E minor, 2, 3, 4. A major, 2, 3, 4. E minor, 2, 3, 4. G major, 2, 3, 4. A major, 2, 3, 4. D major, 2, 3, 4. Now that's one very basic strumming pattern. We're strumming down the whole time, and we're strumming on each beat. We can have a few more complicated strumming patterns that are going to flex us a little bit more in terms of counting and in terms of moving our right hand. One really common strumming pattern goes like this. Now it's not that much different from the last one. We just add in an up strum between the 2 and the 3. So the way that I like to count this is 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. And on the and, we bring our hand up and we play the strings up the way. So if I count out loud, 1, 2, and 3, 4. 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 Once you've got the hang of that, feel free to play through that whole progression again, but this time use our new strumming pattern. Another strumming pattern, which is really similar, goes like this. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 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 Again, we just have an upstroke after the 3. That's where the 3 and comes from. Take a little time to practice that one, and then we can talk about some kind of faster sounding strumming patterns where we go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Again, that one's not any more complicated. It just sounds faster because we're also playing on the upstroke this time. Our hand isn't actually moving anymore. It's just that we're playing the whole time. And if you're able to do all of these strumming patterns, then you can pretty much make it up as you go along. If I just pick this D chord and I strum however I want, I can change the pattern to whatever suits the music. And ultimately, that level of freedom of choice of what we strum is what we're really after. So once you've had a go playing those different strumming patterns, once you've learned them all, once you've memorized them and practiced them a little bit, now the challenge is to make up your very own strumming patterns. Just do whatever you like. If you're in a place where you can play a changing strumming pattern, however you want, over changing chords that you choose when and where to play them, then you're in a really good place to pick up from here. One last thing to add in is to remember to count out loud the whole time. Obviously, when we're on stage, we don't necessarily count out a lot, but when we're practicing, it's always really helpful if we're able to count out as we play. It helps to prevent us from getting lost. And it's just kind of another thing to exercise, another skill to develop. So if I just play some changing chords over a changing strumming pattern while counting out loud, it'll look like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Again, that's a lot of plates to spin in your brain if you're not used to it, but like all things, it just takes a little bit of practice. Well, thanks very much for tuning into today's lesson. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope that you learned an awful lot. Just as we finish our lesson today, we're going to round it off the same way as we started, with some stretches and some cool down movements. This is again just to make sure that we stay nice and loose now that we're finished, that we don't cramp up or get sore, and that means that we can play even better tomorrow. Okay, so a lot of the same movements we did at the start, we can do now. We can roll our shoulders, we can shake off our arms, we can roll our wrists, and we can stretch off our fingers. Just like at the beginning, the key thing is to keep things moving, to keep things warm and stretched off. With all that done, all that's left is to say thank you very much for joining us today at NL Guitar Lessons Online. Please check out some of our other content and don't forget to like, share and subscribe.